Welcome to class, everybody. The first thing I'll do is share my screen as usual. And let's see, here we are with the class notes. So here we are today. It's Tuesday, but LaGuardia thinks it's Monday, so we're in class. And we're going to go over a couple of essays in class today. Most of you who are here have already submitted the first essay. First draft of the first essay. I'm just double checking as we talk, but there are a couple of you who have not. So you know who you are. So please do that. Or if you have an issue, stay on after class and we can talk about it a little bit. But I really need you to send in those first drafts. Just checking who's here and who's not done that, just a couple of you. So please do that. You really can. The second draft is, we really want the second draft, essay 2, whoops, but we really want that second draft by Thursday, the second draft by Thursday, and today is Tuesday. So if you haven't put in your first draft, really need to do it today if you can, so I can look it over, get it back to you, and you can have tomorrow to revise it. You could even have Thursday a little bit to revise it. But on Thursday, as you can see, we're going to move ahead with the second essay. And it's really much better for you not to be working on 2 essays at the same time. So there we go. Today's Tuesday, no class Wednesday. Thursday, we're going to take a look at the Bill of Rights. We'll go over that in detail. We'll read together, and then you'll be able to pick a couple of things to write about for your second essay. And that second essay is going to be due the following Tuesday down here. So we won't have a class that Monday, but Tuesday we'll have a class. That's when that first draft is due. And then the second draft of the second essay will be due on January 26th. January 26th is also when we're going to have the librarian come to class and walk us through the library. So that'll be an interesting class as well. And then I just showing you that essay number 3 is coming up soon after that. So seriously, if you haven't gotten your first draft of your first essay in, please do that as soon as you can, even if it's not the best draft possible, even if it's just, a beginning, that's okay. I'll work on it with you and we'll try to get you up to speed. Really don't want you working on 2 essays at the same time. I know I said that a couple of times, but it's really true. Okay, so let me just stop there. See who's here. Okay, so I see there's a few of you, 3 of you here today who haven't given me in that first draft. So please try to do that. You can always call me or text me or even email me if you have any issues doing that. But please, you need to do that. All right, I won't say that over and over again. So let's take a look. Oh, let me stop for a second, ask if anybody's got any questions about where we are. Okay.
Professor?
Yes.
I have some questions about the library class. We need to go to the school that day?
No, the librarian's going to join us here in the Zoom class.
Oh, yeah, because I can't go to the school that day, so I'm afraid.
You can, of course, go to the library in the college anytime you want to. But no, we're going to do it virtually. So he's going to join, or she's going to join the Zoom class. And I know I showed you a few things in the library, but they will show you a little more. And if you have questions about, as you're looking for sources for your second essay, if you have questions about that, certainly you can ask about that.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Okay. Okay, so today what we're going to do is take a look at some other essays that students submitted that need some editing. So here's one right here. So let's take a look at this essay here. This is one of the first essays. The United States of America was founded on liberty and justice for all. It's an excellent starting sentence, perfect sentence. They are principles that all men are created equal and endowed with certain inalienable rights. And here's the proper way to do that citation. You'll notice that even though the quote is inside the sentence, the parenthetical citation follows at the end of the sentence. And of course, you'll note that the period is there after the closed parenthesis. And that Jefferson points us down to the works cited, which is here. And there's the entry that the author Jefferson wrote. Of course, we know this. And it's easy for the reader to be able to locate that and find that source. Perfect. Perfect. Those two things work together perfectly, and that was done very well. That's the second draft. Yeah, I realized it's a second draft as soon as I started reading it, but it's okay. So we'll go through this one, and this is actually a second draft, so we can see how the maybe we saw this one before, but we can still take a look at it. The right to life is the principle that every human being has the right to life and shouldn't be killed by any other being. There can be many different interpretations of the right to life. The right to life is often used in debates about abortion. Now, the only thing I would say about that, I know it's the second essay, it's fine. Look, the right to life, the right to life, the right to life, the right to life. So this is the kind of thing that it's perfectly grammatically correct. And there's nothing wrong with doing this, except that it's repeating those same words. It would be nice for the reader not to have to read the same words over and over again. So if this is for everybody, if you find yourself repeating a phrase such as this one, sometimes you can't avoid it because, as in this case, it's a technical definition. It's the right to life. So it's a little tricky here to do that. But I am pointing out that repeating the same words over again is something you try to avoid. So maybe there are many different interpretations of this right here, of this right, instead of the right to life. That might be a better way to do it, to break up the repetition of the words. You can't always do it, but when you can, it's a good thing to try to do. The right to life here, the right to life is often used in debates about abortion. Others believe that the right to life, others believe that everyone has a right to a life free from fear of violence and persecution. And that's a slight variation, and that's good. Some people argue that every human being has a right to life from the moment of conception. They believe that abortion is wrong because it takes the life of a human being. Others can argue that the right to life begins at birth. They also believe that abortion is wrong because it deprives a child of the chance to live. The right to life can also have meaning in violent conflict. Now, you notice this is a really interesting way to talk about the right to life. Different ideas are being brought in: violence, persecution, abortion. These are a number of different ways of talking about the right to life to make you, the reader, think about it more. And so it's a good thing to do. And you'll notice that these are examples. That, this is an example. This is an example. This is an example. But the words "for example" and the words "such as" are not being used here, and that's good because you don't always have to say "for example" in order to present an example. And here, these examples, a number of them, are presented without having to introduce it that way, which means a couple of different things. Good writing. It also means that a little later, if you have to say "for example," you're not repeating yourself over and over again, just like we're talking about. Some believe that violence is never justified. You'll notice that how this is all of this here and everything we've read so far. No, all in the third person. Some believe, they believe, some people, right here. There are many different interpretations, all third person. which is exactly what we're striving for. I was reading over some of your posts in the discussion board, and a couple of times I was pointing out that you need to make sure to use the third person only. And also you'll notice here, all of this is formal vocabulary. Not once have I said, oh, that's an informal word. That's good writing. Others might believe that the right to life does not extend to those who engage in violence or are complicit in violence. So here you have that. You give an example on one side and then an example on the other side to show the balance and to show the deliberation and to show how the concept, the idea, has different interpretations, which is what it says right here, right? Different interpretations of the right to life reflect different values and beliefs. So all these examples and some of the contrary examples lead up to this particular statement here, which is a very important statement, but it's obviously true, and it recognizes all kinds of things people were saying about human nature when we were just you were writing about that in the discussion posts. Even with diverse perspectives, both sides of the debate are motivated by a compelling desire to protect and defend human life. Yes, good way to sum up that paragraph. The right to liberty is the right to be free from interference from others. Freedom within the law protects this right through the right to speech and freedom of religion. Now, of course, we'll be talking about these things with essay number 2. It's perfectly acceptable to put them in this first essay since they're related ideas. But we will be talking specifically about things like the right to free speech and the right to freedom of religion next on Thursday. The right to liberty protects any person from being deprived of their freedom from arbitrary or unreasonable restraint. Absolutely. That arbitrary, by the way, means not according to law. Arbitrary means by someone's whim or because of someone's desire, and not according to the established way of doing things. So that word arbitrary is a very important word, and it reflects this idea about liberty being the freedom within the law. Arbitrary is the opposite of law, and here using the antonym, so to speak, the opposite word echoes this thought and carries that idea through the paragraph. There are, however, limits on the right to liberty. It is not absolute, and it can be restricted in the interest of public safety, national security, and the protection of others. Yes, I'm definitely going to talk about this kind of thing next week. Another idea, when it's protection of others, specifically protection of minors is one of those things that the government can violate people's rights, in order to protect minors. By violating any laws or any other person's inalienable rights, the government can deprive people of the right to liberty. In other words, if the government were to violate their lives, they would be depriving people of the rights to liberty. Think about it this way. Our freedom in the United States, the kind of freedom that we enjoy, is liberty, which is freedom within the law. That means when anybody breaks the law, when anybody transcends the law in any way, what they're really doing is taking away our freedom. We, all of us, in the United States, are only free when we obey the law, if we obey the law. And we are all of us are only free if we're all obeying the law. As soon as people start not obeying the law, it means we're not going to be free any longer, and our freedom is threatened. So think about that. For example, if one was found under the circumstances for conviction of serious offenses, being found guilty of a crime, having mental conditions, or attempting to leave the country illegally, their right to liberty can be appropriately deprived. So sure, if for some reason somebody is breaking the law, the government can deprive them of the right to liberty. They can no longer be free under the law. They would be incarcerated under the law or prosecuted under the law. The right to liberty is an essential part of what makes everyone human. It is an underlying human right that all should respect. This is the theory of the Declaration of Independence. This is what the Declaration of Independence is all about. It puts forth the notion of liberty as an essential part of what makes every person human. And therefore, it puts forth the idea that law is what helps to establish humanity. And without the law, there's no humanity. So you may not agree with that idea. Lots of people have throughout history have not agreed with that idea, but it is the idea that this country was founded on and that the Declaration of Independence puts forth. The right to the pursuit of happiness gives people the right to pursue life as they please with appropriate boundaries. The appropriate boundaries, simply the law. Any person has the right to choose how they live if this choice doesn't violate any other person's inalienable rights. And that's exactly, once again, the theory behind the Declaration of Independence. It says, we might not have read this line together, but governments are instituted among men to protect these rights. The whole point of government is to protect our inalienable rights. The whole point of law is to protect our inalienable rights, make it so that people don't deprive us of the right to live, and don't deprive us of liberty, freedom within the law, and don't deprive us of the right to pursue happiness, choose how we want to live our lives. Here's that, for example. For example, using the freedom of religion to practice religion that exercises the practice of harming others would violate another's rights. See, and the only thing you might want to not do in a sentence like this is use that word twice in the same sentence. And it's almost slightly different meaning in the two words, right? Because when you practice a religion, you adhere to the guidelines of the religion. And when you practice harming others, you actively harm them. So it's a slight difference in the meaning of that word, and it's used twice in the same sense. You want to try to avoid that kind of thing, because once again, it could confuse the reader when you use the same word to have a slightly different meaning, or even just repeating the word. So one thing here is that the word is repeated, and another part of it is that this meaning is slightly different. So that would be something to consider. That's all. The pursuit of happiness grants the principle to and here's practice once again. The pursuit of happiness grants the principle to practice whatever and however appropriately, only limited by a compelling interest in protecting the common good and limiting the harm to others. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. This idea, so the common good is something that's certainly implied in this whole idea about the inalienable rights. The focus of the Declaration of Independence is on the inalienable rights, on the individual rights of the people. So the document doesn't really talk about the common good. When we get to the Constitution, that one definitely puts forth the notions of the common good and more clearly. But it's absolutely true that the common good is the aim of this whole theory of civilization. The pursuit of happiness can be interpreted in countless ways. Absolutely. Anybody can choose their job, spouse, home appropriately as happiness. Nevertheless, the pursuit of happiness is a fundamental human goal that is worth the endeavor. This is one of the ways that an author can get his or her opinion into the writing without saying, I think it's a good thing. I think it's worth the endeavor. Notice, because this is a value judgment. It's worth the endeavor, right? This is a value judgment on the part of the author, right? But it's slipped in there in a very nice way without using the first person or the second person. And it's absolutely also true and valid, but it's a value judgment. Just want to show you that whenever you use a word like this one or an expression like this one, you're making that value judgment. So I say all the time, don't use first person, don't use second person, use third person, because you're expressing the truth, because you're expressing facts, And at the same time, the truth and the facts that you're expressing are also your opinion, or at least the value of those truths and the significance of those facts are something that you as the author are putting forth. And this is one way that authors can do that. I wouldn't want to see something like this in the textbook, because then in the textbook, the author of the textbook, who's really should only be putting forth facts and truth, is really trying to influence the reader a little bit. An essay like this, it's okay to do that because it's an essay and not a textbook. I think you can see what I'm saying here. The inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are essential to a just and thriving society. And here, that word just refers to the concept of justice. So it's the appropriate word to use. The founding fathers and the people of the United States have striven to uphold these rights to ensure they are available to all. Very good. This is a really, really sound essay. And here's the work cited. It's properly formatted. Here are the hanging indent formats. It's alphabetical order. Here the title is being used instead of the author, but that's okay. That's what you're supposed to do. And all double spaced. Notice the title centered, not italicized, not underlined, not bolded, not capitalized. Perfect, perfect. Very good job here. Okay, so I'll be sending that back offline. Okay, so let me just check in. We got a bunch more people here. So let me repeat what I said earlier, which is that if you have not sent me the first draft of the first essay yet, that would be a really good thing to do, because on Thursday, we're going to start with the second essay, and you really don't want to be working on two essays at the same time. So please, if I can see a couple of students, if you haven't sent me that, I won't repeat it. You know what to do. Okay, so now let's take a look at another essay. Okay, this is a first draft, I sincerely believe, Inalienable Rights. The Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson in 1776, is one of the most important documents in American history. Great thesis statement, great opening sentence. And you'll notice that this part, written by Thomas Jefferson in 1776, is set off with the commas, as it's supposed to be. Some people might even add a comma here, since it's two different descriptors, not necessarily, but see that? All of that could be out of the sentence, and it would be the Declaration of Independence is one of the most important documents in American history. So you set all of that off in commas. Often when we're just doing dates such as this, we set the date off in a comma too. It laid out the principles upon which the United States was founded, including the belief that all men are created equal and have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Another very good sentence that clearly states what the essay is about and what happened with the Declaration of Independence, the significance of it. These rights are essential for the protection of citizens and for promoting aspects of human life, such as human nature, truth, wisdom, freedom, and justice, which are, of course, our critical thinking terms, which is this is an excellent thing as far as I'm concerned, because that's what I want everybody to be thinking about. And of course, it's true. So that's a good job. Meanwhile, before you put in such as, or for example, you need that comma introducing it. Nothing wrong with the word life here. I just made it red simply because I want that for you to see that comma there. All right, so let's see what the essay says about these things. The right to life is the belief that every human being has the right to live and should not be killed by anyone. This is really, here's a positive statement of the right to life, and then the negative statement of the right to life. It's very well done. This right not only improves the quality of life for all individuals, but also protects innocent people from being killed. Once again, this is absolutely true. That's the whole point of the right to life, is that everybody can have a life, certainly quality of life. And then, of course, this other notion that it protects the innocent, the whole notion of the innocent. It's good. Here's the, for example, capital punishment is an issue that raises questions about the right to life. That's absolutely true. This might be better introduced with some other introductory words instead of for example, because this, for example, when you see the words for example, you're expecting what follows to have something to do with what preceded. So you could here, though, this idea is that here, the right to life is a good thing. And here, wait a minute, there's questions about the right to life. So it might be better to start this sentence with a word such as however, rather than for example, because it's not truly an example. It's rather an exception, and that's going to be explained, I'm sure. Some argue that it serves as a deterrent to crime and justice for victims and their families, the capital punishment. Others argue that it is inhumane and can lead to the execution of innocent people. Of course, both of those things are true. And so this is a good presentation of the article. See that it there? Until we read all of this, we don't know whether that it actually refers to the right to life, which is the immediate predecessor, or capital punishment, which is up there at the beginning of the sentence. So might be better to improve the writing instead of using the word it here. And you don't want to repeat capital punishment, but it might be better just to raise the level of writing a little bit, to use other words that would reflect back on capital punishment. Sometimes it's difficult for me to think this out on the fly, but words such as the criminal remedy, that this criminal remedy here, something like that. Some argue that this legal procedure or remedy, procedure, sure, something like that, rather than the word it, simply because it more fully explains and it makes it more clear, more precise, and more exact. Some of my classes, some of my students have felt that I overly criticize the word it, because I'll go through a person's essay and show them how many times they used it instead of saying what it is, instead of naming it, instead of identifying it, because it is one of those words that we can use to mean anything, and we do. So in this case like this, it's actually fine the way it is. I'm just pointing out that one way to improve it would be to identify what that it is, to define what that it is. So for your own writing, when you're looking over your own writing and deciding what, whether it's good, whether you want to make changes, how you might want to edit it, how you might want to improve it, if you see yourself using the word it over and over again, or even whenever you use it, to make sure that the antecedent, the word that it stands for, it's a pronoun, the word that the noun that the pronoun is standing for is clear, right? You don't want your reader to say, what is it? Now, of course, when I read this, I had to say to myself, what is it? Is it the right to life, or is it capital punishment? Of course, as soon as I got here, I knew what it was, but nevertheless, I had to, for a moment, think about that. And all I'm saying to all of you is that you should think about it and then make it easier for a reader to follow your logic, rather than to have the reader have to try to figure out what it is you're saying. Okay. Some argue that it serves as a deterrent to crime and justice for victims, a deterrent to crime. And so it's a deterrent to crime, but it's not a deterrent for justice. So, and improves justice or enforces justice, or, does something good for justice for the victims, right? Enforces, enforces is good, and enforces justice for victims and their families. So, so be careful about that sometimes when you use the word "and," to make sure that what's on this side of the word and what's on this side of the word "and" are equal. Like here you have the word "and" you have victims and their families. Well, that's just fine. But here, deterrent is something to stop crime. It's not a deterrent for justice. You don't want to stop justice with victims. So you need to, here it's against and here it's in favor. So you need to clarify that and put that extra word in there to make that clear. Once again, when you proofread your own essays, when you go over your own essays, it's the kind of thing to look for to make sure that, because in your mind, you know exactly what you want to say. It's always clear to you. You're the writer. You thought of it anyway. But the reader has to follow what you're saying. And sometimes when you don't define a word quite clearly, and that's what I was talking about here, this was defining your terms. Now, in this case, the term is "it," right? Defining your terms the way I talked about it earlier in the term, what does love mean, things like that. But here it's just the word "it." Define that word "it." And then also taking a look at when you make a statement, to make sure that the governing word, in this case, deterrent, governed over all of those things until we put the word "enforces" in, because we didn't mean a deterrent to justice. We meant something positive about justice, but negative about crime. Think about that. So here, some argue it serves as a deterrent to crime and enforces justice for victims and their families, while others argue that it is inhumane and can lead to the execution of innocent people. And this, of course, here's another and yes, inhumane and in executing innocent people, those are basically equal, so it is perfect. Yeah. Here's the "it," but if that "it" is defined up here, if the logical thought pattern, capital punishment, this legal procedure, okay, then when you get down here, it is okay because we're talking about the same thing in these three sentences, in this series of sentences. So the reader won't get lost. You said capital punishment, you called it the legal procedure. If you call it "it" at this point, it's probably okay. Nevertheless, clarifying this even one more time, right? This form of punishment, right? This choice of punishment here. Oops, sorry. Okay, where is it here? Here. This severe punishment, this severe punishment, you could even characterize it that way if you want. Or even not this, such a severe punishment is inhumane. And so once again, take a look at that word "it" and see, whenever you use it, and see if there's a way to make your writing more clear, more precise, more exact by defining those terms. I said a couple times earlier in the term, one of the things we do in formal writing is we're continually looking at the words to make sure that they're defined properly. And again, one of the words that you could be looking at is the "it," and that's true about other pronouns as well. So if you use a he or a she or a they, anytime in your writing, you need to make sure that whatever noun that pronoun is standing for, whatever that antecedent, the word that comes before, antecedent, the before word, whatever that word is, that pronoun is referring to, that it is clear what it's referring to. Often it can be confusing, especially if you have two nouns in the word. Here, we don't have it there. I don't have an example of that, but sometimes if you have two nouns in the word, that it can be confusing, or the pronoun can be confusing as to which word you're referring to with that pronoun. And then here, some of you may not know Immanuel Kant, very famous philosopher who was writing at exactly the same time as Thomas Jefferson was writing, and who put forth all ideas about how morality should be logical, just like here, Thomas Jefferson, the others are putting forth ideas about how politics, how government should be logical. And that's, so the idea of using Immanuel Kant as another reference in this essay is absolutely brilliant as far as I'm concerned. The third person that can be used, and I didn't even look to see if that's the case, just so you know, is a man named Adam Smith, who coincidentally in 1776, the same year that the Declaration of Independence was published, talking about individual rights, Adam Smith published a book called Wealth of Nations, in which is the Bible of capitalism, of individuals succeeding in the economic sphere. So between the three of them, between Thomas Jefferson writing in the political sphere and Adam Smith writing in the economic sphere and Immanuel Kant writing in the moral or social sphere, you really have a coming together of minds. And he published Critique of Pure Reason in the 1790s. So it's very close in time. You really have a coming together of minds in that period of time, all thinking the same way. And one of them's in Germany, Kant is in Prussia, and Adam Smith is in Scotland, and Thomas Jefferson is in the United States. So it's all over the map. And these thoughts are still very, very closely aligned. Anyway, Immanuel Kant, and here you need those commas surrounding in his critique of pure reason, because the sentence actually is Immanuel Kant argues, right? So this is just a descriptor giving more information where he does the arguing. Immanuel Kant, in his critique of pure reason, argues that human life is valuable in itself, and therefore taking it away is not permissible under any circumstances. And once again, you could surround that word therefore with commas, because the therefore is, again, a descriptor. Really, it's and taking it away is not permissible under any circumstances. The right to life is important because it ensures that everyone has the chance to live and fulfill their human nature. Excellent, excellent, excellent paragraph. And of course, I think it's great that Immanuel Kant is used in here. So I don't know whether the author, Abraham, knew about Immanuel Kant beforehand or found out about Immanuel Kant in research. So it's not, you don't, for all of you, you don't have to know all these things in advance, but when you do the research, when you read about, say, for example, the right to life, you could stumble across other people, other writers who wrote about these things, and then you learn how people's thoughts ran in a similar fashion, and you can use these kinds of references in support of what you're saying. This is just excellent the way this is done. The right to liberty is the freedom of movement and freedom from arbitrary arrest. Okay, remember I keep saying freedom within the law. This is considered a fundamental right and ensures fair conditions for all individuals in relation to government and detention. Right, so this is one aspect of the notion of freedom, right here. Freedom of movement, with two aspects, freedom of movement and freedom from arbitrary arrest. Actually, liberty refers to all of the different laws, whatever they may be, and you can't list them all here. So here it would be probably better to focus more directly on the notion that liberty is freedom under the law, and use these as an example of that. This is considered fundamental. Okay, this right helps to keep society orderly and allows individuals to live without fear of those in positions of power. Absolutely, because everybody is subject to the same law, because no one is above the law, because we have one law for everyone, and therefore no one needs to fear people in power, because even the people in power can't violate the law, or rather, shouldn't be able to violate the law. In practice, of course, we know that people break the law all the time, and people in positions of power abuse their positions of power and break the law all the time. But this is the theory. That's the practice. Then one of the things you have to realize, we're talking about the theory, the ideas behind the notions that were in the Declaration of Independence, and then you have the reality, the practice, what people actually do. And someone like Immanuel Kant was trying to put together a rational morality, because he knew that if people are left free to behave any way they want to behave, they're going to trample all over everyone else's rights. That's why the right of liberty is so important. The right of liberty protects all of our rights because it limits people's actions to those that are within the law. That's what it's supposed to do. Limit everybody's actions to only ones that are legal, that the society has agreed to its established laws are the limits of human activity. And that's why the law is such an important idea to keep in mind when you talk about the right to liberty, because it's all about the law. It's all about all of us being subject, all of us being free, because we're all subject to the same laws. And so we're all limited. Freedom is not unbounded. Our freedom is limited. Liberty is limited freedom. It's limited by the law, but it's freedom. There are many different types of freedom. Autonomy is the kind of freedom that the King of England exercised. King of England, King of France, King of Spain, they could do anything they wanted at any time, in any way, right? They were laws unto themselves, right? That's not the kind of freedom, autonomy, ruling, self-rule. That's not the kind of freedom that we have here. We have liberty. So it's very important to marry that notion of liberty to the notion of law. That's why I was saying before, when people break the law, they're really depriving us of our liberty, because we are only free. We only have liberty if we all obey the law. If some of us do and some of us don't, then we're no longer free. We no longer have liberty. For example, a person who's detained without due process or fair trial is denied their right to liberty. It's true, because without due process or a fair trial, these are the legal, and we'll talk about this next week, these are the legal definitions, right? This is what the law says. In order for somebody to be arrested, there has to be a process that's correct, right? You have to follow the rules, and it has to be a fair trial, right? We'll talk about what that means, but these are legal terms, and that's absolutely correct. If the law is violated, then people are no longer free. So this sentence here says exactly what I was saying in just very specific terms. Here, Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday it was yesterday, you may recall, in his letter from Birmingham jail, argues that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and that we should all have the freedom to live in a just society. And that is absolutely correct. And that is absolutely what I was trying to say when I said, fanboys, comma here, sorry. When I said when somebody breaks the law, they're threatening everybody's freedom. Injustice, breaking the law, right? Justice is following the law. Injustice is breaking the law. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And you could see in this word justice the notion of the law, and you can see in the word law the notion of liberty, and liberty means the kind of freedom we have. So here, what I've been saying in my own way, when somebody breaks the law, they threaten everybody's freedom. Here's Martin Luther King saying it in his way, very eloquent. You need a fanboys comma here, because this is a complete sentence. We should all, actually, I'm wrong. Sorry. the word that is there, and the word that connects it to the prior. This here, there's the whole dependent clause. Sorry, there's the whole dependent clause starting with the word that. And since it's a dependent clause starting with the word that, it's not a complete sentence, and therefore you do not need the comma. It's correct the way it is. Here's a sentence. That's the independent clause. There could be a period there. This dependent clause is attached to it, and it's made a dependent clause because of that. But here we do have sneaking in the first person, right? This we should be everyone or some word like that rather than the we. I'm not picking on the writing here. I'm just trying to illustrate the kinds of things that everybody should be aware of when you're doing your own writing, and just keep these things in mind. This right also allows individuals to pursue their own truth and wisdom by allowing them to freely express and explore their own ideas. Actually, this idea is true within the law. We are free, but that's this. Right? These words here really apply more to the pursuit of happiness than to liberty. Liberty is limiting our freedom, and the pursuit of happiness is expanding our freedom. Lastly, the right of the pursuit of happiness is the ability to live freely and to pursue one's own goals and aspirations. Without this right, many individuals would have to put their dreams on hold. This right is important because it improves the overall well-being and allows individuals to pursue their passions. Yes, if the government, as they do in some countries, says, oh no, they used to do this in communist Russia, for example. If you took history in school and you got A's in history, then they would make you an historian. Maybe you wanted to be a hairdresser, but they made you an historian because you got A's. You know, the government interfered with the notion of being able to choose what career or what path you would want to be on in terms of your life. And fortunately, we don't have that in the United States. The pursuit of happiness is the principle that allows us to choose for ourselves, just like this, right? It allows us to choose for ourselves. This right is important because it improves the overall, pursuit of passions. For example, someone who wants to start their own business but is hindered by excessive government regulations is denied their right to pursue happiness. This is a major argument on the part of people who feel, and I agree, it's true, that too much government regulation stops people from being able to do what they want. And without coming down on either side of the issue, you may have heard lately, oh, New York State is going to ban gas stoves. Well, what is the government doing telling us which kind of stove to have in our apartment, in our house? Now, you can make arguments on either side. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, as much as I'm pointing out that that's the kind of excessive government regulation that people feel sometimes denies their right of pursuit of happiness. On the other hand, everybody has to have a driver's license in order to drive a car. Everybody has to have insurance in order to drive a car. You might not feel that those are excessive government regulations. You may feel that those kinds of regulations are the kinds of regulations that protect everybody. So there's a balance that has to be struck. John Stuart Mill, in his On Liberty, now again, in his On Liberty, you would want to set off with commas because it's a descriptor. And you could even call that an essay, or it's a short book, but you could call it an essay on liberty. Argues that, argues that the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. So in my example about driver's license and insurance, okay, that's to prevent harm to others. It remains to be seen whether having a gas stove is harmful to others. If it's decided that it is, then perhaps the government does have the right to stop us from using those things. Again, John Stuart Mill maybe he's writing 20 or 30 or 40 years after, 50 years after the Declaration of Independence is promulgated, but he was very focused on this idea, liberty, which is the idea that we're talking about up here, but certainly he's correct in putting John Stuart Mill right here in this essay to support the idea of pursuit of happiness, because that's the basic idea. There's a certain part of me that thinks that this example would have been better up in the paragraph above, but it works fine here. This right allows individuals to live freely and happily while fulfilling their own dreams and expressing their own human nature. Yes, absolutely. Some of us might feel that it should say human natures, because we talked about how human nature being different, even though it's one, but it's fine the way it is. In conclusion, the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson in 1776, and here's that in 1776, better form to set that way with commas, laid out the principles upon which the United States was founded. The rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are essential for the protection of citizens and for promoting aspects of human life. There's that comma before the such as human nature, truth, wisdom, freedom, justice, virtue. These unalienable rights have ensured that individuals have the right to live without fear of harm, the freedom to move and express themselves, and the ability to pursue their own goals and aspirations. These rights are fundamental to ensuring a just, which is exactly the correct word, an equitable society for all. Equitable meaning we're all equal before the law. Although there are many challenges and obstacles along the way, as long as these rights are upheld and protected, society will continue to benefit from their positive effects. Very good, very good. Now, you'll notice here, this is also a value judgment, just like I was speaking about in the other essay. And there's the value word right there. So again, this is expressing the point of view of the author, but not I think or you think or anything we think how. This is expressing it by stating a fact. So here's the value judgment coming through as a statement of fact. When you are reading on your own, be wary of these things. It's an essay. The author's allowed to do this. It's not wrong to do this. It's not what I'm saying. However, when you're reading on your own in other places, be wary of times when the author is putting forth what the author wants you to believe and think. And so you need to read everything critically with a critical eye, just like we're doing here, and be prepared to question what the author is saying, understand it for sure. I mean, we definitely understand. This is clear, precise, and exact. We understand what the author is saying. Do we agree with it? In this case, I do, but that's not the point. Question is, you ask yourself, do you agree with it? That's when you're really being critical. Good essay. And here is the work cited. Once again, here, this, I believe, if we can get it up there. No, we can't. So there's a little formatting issue here. Sometimes the software doesn't do exactly what we want it to do. But I think this probably belongs up there. And then here, again, I did that. Geez, stop that. And also this needs to be double spaced. Everything in MLA is double spaced and should have that hanging indent, just like that. So that's something to be aware of. But otherwise, you'll notice everything is in alphabetical order, just as it should be. And these look like they're proper citations. This one gives you the publisher. This one doesn't give you the publisher, but and it probably should. Okay, so there you have it. Two essays, two very good essays talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I see there's lots of folks here, so I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. Here, let me bring up the class notes again and just remind everybody about what we're doing here. Just 1 second, and I'll have it on my screen. Here we are. So here we are today. We took a look at a couple of different drafts. There's no class tomorrow. So those of you, and there's a number of you, who have not submitted that first draft of the first essay, please do that. Please do that by tomorrow at the latest, so that I can turn it around, give you your feedback, and you can get your second draft in by Thursday, because on Thursday, we'll be starting the second essay. So now your back is against the wall. You need to submit something. Even if it's not perfect, it does not have to be perfect. Submit what you have. I understand some of you haven't written in a while. You're reluctant. You're not sure about what you have. Please hand it in. The whole point of this class is to go through the process of you're giving me a draft. Am I giving you feedback and criticizing and suggestions? And then you rewrite them. You implement those ideas and you edit your essay and you improve it. And don't forget, this whole class is a learning process. The whole idea is stepping stones from essay 1 to essay 2 to essay 3 to the final essay. And so you're expected to improve. Everybody, you're not starting out as the best, all of you. Some of you are really good writers, but you're not starting out as the best writers. You're starting out as beginning writers. And we want you to go through the process of drafts and revision. And that's how you improve your skill, and that's how you improve your writing. So please get those essays into me. At a certain point, some students, this always happens, fall behind and really don't want to do that in such a short class. You know, when you have 15 weeks in a semester, you can fall behind and catch up. But when you only have 7 weeks in the semester like we have, this is already week 3, yes? So we really need to get those essays in. Okay, enough lecturing. I'm stopping the sharing. That's what we're doing today. If anybody has any questions, this is a good time to ask them. If you're not sure about anything, you can always email me, text me, call me if you have questions about something, but definitely I want to see those essays from you. Okay?
Professor,
Yes.
for our second essay, can we have an example like first essay?
In the Blackboard folder, in the content area of Blackboard, in the folder essay number 2, I believe there's a sample essay in there. So take a look in there. If not, yes, I'll definitely do that on Thursday.
Okay, yeah, because I checked the content, I just see the materials, but there
Not
are
there.
no
Okay.
examples.
Okay, so then I'll definitely, what I'll do is I will post one in there. Let me just write that down here.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Sure, definitely. Anybody else? Just made a little note to do that. Okay, everybody, if you haven't sent your essay in, please do so. If you're working on your second draft, please get that one in, and I'll see you all on Thursday. When am I going to start essay number 2? Have a good night.
Have a good day. See you, Professor.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Jessica, I see you out there. Stay online.
Okay.
Thank you. See you on Thursday.
Okay, good night. All right, I'm going to end the recording now.